The candlelight flickered against Eli's trembling hands as his classmates surrounded him, chanting for his birthday wish. He stared at the small chocolate cupcake his mother had packed that morning, a lonely candle drooping like a question mark. For a heartbeat, he wanted to whisper the truth, that his real wish was for friends, for someone to see him. But when Liam smirked and said, "Bet you wished for something lame," something inside Eli twisted. "I wished I'd never be ignored again," he lied, voice steady. The room fell silent, the air too still. His classmates clapped and laughed, but something in the flickering flame seemed to listen. What happens when a lie becomes the only truth you live in? Is a lie still harmless if the world starts believing it more than you do? As Eli blew out the candle, the flame lingered unnaturally long, like it didn't want to die. That night, Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling as moonlight crept through his thin curtains. The lie replayed in his head over and over, each time louder. He wanted to laugh at himself. What harm could a lie do? Yet, something about the silence felt different, almost listening. Downstairs, the clock ticked too loudly, and his mother's faint snoring sounded distant, as if the house itself had grown larger. When Eli turned to his window, a reflection stared back, a version of him smiling faintly even though he wasn't. He blinked, and it was gone. But the whisper that followed was not. "You won't be ignored again, Eli," it said softly. And for the first time, he wished he hadn't spoken those words at all. The next morning, his mother rushed him off to school with tired affection, her eyes half-lidded but kind. She didn't notice how he flinched when she called his name, as if her voice had come from behind him instead of in front. The school halls felt heavier, full of glances that lingered too long. Every time Eli looked away, he caught people still staring in the corners of his eyes. Mr. Hayes paused mid-lecture, eyes unfocused for a moment as if hearing something only Eli could understand. Eli smiled awkwardly, pretending nothing was wrong, but the voice whispered again, closer this time. "See, no one can ignore you now." By lunchtime, Eli's lie had turned him into a legend. Everyone repeated it. The boy whose wish would make him unforgettable. They teased him, questioned him, surrounded him. For a moment, he loved it. He felt tall, important. But when Liam asked him what it felt like to be noticed by everyone, Eli froze. The classroom had fallen silent again. Everyone really was watching him. No one blinked. Not even the teacher. Their smiles didn't fade. They just stayed, stretched and wrong. The whisper came again, amused now. "You said you wanted this." When Eli finally escaped into the restroom, the silence hit like a wall. He splashed water on his face, trying to steady his breath. But when he looked up, his reflection didn't move. It stared, smiling slightly. Behind him in the mirror, the classroom door was still visible, even though he had closed it minutes ago. "You lied," the reflection whispered, lips moving slowly. "Now you must keep it alive." Eli backed away, knocking over the sink soap, heart pounding. Somewhere, deep inside, he realized the lie wasn't just his anymore. It belonged to something else now. Eli woke to his mother's whisper at the door. "You're going to be late," she said softly. But her voice echoed twice, once from the hallway, once from right beside his bed. He sat up sharply, heart thudding. Sarah smiled, standing in the doorway, unaware of the second voice that lingered. Outside, the morning was pale and heavy with fog. On the way to school, everyone seemed to glance at him. A mailman pausing mid-step, a woman watering plants with a frozen smile. The world felt like a stage, and he was the only one who hadn't learned the script. He whispered under his breath, "Please stop noticing me." But the whisper from the air around him replied, "You asked for this." At school, whispers trailed him like shadows. When he sat, chairs scraped softly as every student turned their heads in unison. Mr. Hayes called on him repeatedly, even when he didn't raise his hand. "Eli," What's your answer? Eli, can you read the next line? Eli, look at me. By noon, his name had become a rhythm that filled every corner of the classroom. His fingers trembled as he flipped through his notebook, the words on the page shifting, every line rewritten to spell his name. When he looked up, even Liam's grin had vanished. The room was too bright, too focused. He wanted to disappear. But how do you hide when the lie makes you seen by everything? When recess came, Eli ran to the playground, hoping the wind might drown out the whispers. But even the swings creaked his name. He sat under the old oak tree, watching the others play in silence. For the first time, no one came near him. They just stood in the distance, watching, smiling faintly. His lie had turned admiration into fear. He dug his nails into the dirt, whispering to himself, I didn't mean it. The voice that answered was cold, almost gentle, but you said it. He lifted his eyes, and every child on the playground had stopped moving, all facing him. That evening, Sarah found Eli sitting at the kitchen table, hands over his ears. They keep saying my name, he muttered. She frowned, kneeling beside him. Who? She asked gently. He looked up, eyes wide. Everyone. The refrigerator hummed loudly. The lights flickered. Sarah reached for his hand, but for a split second, her face blurred into two. One smiling warmly, the other cold and hollow. She blinked, and it was gone. You just need rest, she said softly. Eli wanted to tell her everything, but he knew she wouldn't believe him. Lies sound crazy when you finally try to tell the truth. That night, Eli couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house whispered his name, the faucet drip, the ticking clock, even the creak of the floorboards. When he finally turned on his bedside lamp, the reflection in his window was no longer his own. It was smiling, wider, closer. You lied, it said softly, its voice almost kind. Now you have to make the others believe it too. The figure's eyes gleamed with candlelight, the same orange hue from his birthday. Eli screamed, but his mother didn't wake. The voice answered his cry with a soft laugh. See, Eli? You wished to never be ignored. The next morning, Eli didn't speak. He avoided every gaze, kept his eyes on the ground, and hoped silence could bury what he had said. But silence, he learned, only made the lie louder. As he walked to school, birds on the telephone wire turned their heads to follow him. Passing cars slowed, strangers leaned from windows just to stare. By the time he reached the school gates, his hands were shaking. He whispered, I take it back. The air around him shivered, and for a heartbeat, everything stopped. The birds, the breeze, even the sun's warmth. Then the whisper came back, colder than ever. You can't take back what isn't yours anymore. Mr. Hayes found Eli sitting outside the classroom, pale and quiet. Eli, you look tired, he said kindly. But Eli didn't look up. I lied, he whispered. Mr. Hayes frowned, crouching down. About what? Eli's lips trembled. My wish. The teacher chuckled softly, assuming it was childish guilt. That's not so bad. Ali's voice broke. It is when it starts coming true. The light above them flickered. Mr. Hayes straightened slowly, eyes darkening with something unreadable. Then, maybe, he said softly, you should start wishing differently. Eli tried to follow the teacher's advice. At lunch, he clasped his hands and whispered, I wish everyone would stop looking at me. The cafeteria went silent. He looked up. Every face had turned away, eyes closed, motionless like statues. The sound of chewing, breathing, even the hum of the fridge stopped. Then slowly, one by one, their heads turned back, but their eyes were gone, replaced by dark emptiness that still somehow stared. Eli's chair scraped back as he stumbled away, knocking his tray to the floor. The whisper in his mind laughed softly. Careful, Eli. You're getting what you wish for. Panicked, Eli ran to the schoolyard, but the world outside wasn't right either. The trees swayed, though there was no wind. Shadows of children still playing lingered on the pavement, but the real children were gone. He heard whispers coming from the ground, his own voice repeating the lie in a loop. I wished I'd never be ignored. He dropped to his knees, covering his ears, screaming, "Stop it!" For a moment, the air fell silent. And when he opened his eyes, the shadows were staring up at him, their mouths moving without sound. He realized with horror that he was surrounded, not by people, but by echoes of his own deceit. That night, Eli didn't speak a word. His mother tried to ask what was wrong, but he only stared at her, terrified that his words might bring the lie closer. When she tucked him in, she brushed his hair and whispered, "I'll always see you, sweetheart." He flinched. After she left, the light under his door flickered. Then a second voice, his own, whispered from the dark corner of the room, "She means it, Eli." He turned toward the sound and froze. His reflection was sitting on the floor, candlelight glowing in its eyes. "You should be grateful," it said softly. Your wish came true. Eli woke to find his reflection sitting on the edge of his bed, smiling like it had been waiting all night. "You're not real," he whispered, voice shaking. The reflection tilted its head, eyes shimmering with the faint glow of that cursed candle. "Neither are you, if no one forgets you." Eli tried to move, but his limbs felt heavy, like the air itself held him down. Outside his window, the world shimmered. People frozen mid-step, faces turned toward his house. His lie had stopped being a secret. It had become a presence, breathing, watching, waiting, and in its silence came the most terrifying truth of all. It didn't need him to lie anymore. Downstairs, Sarah stood by the sink, humming quietly. The radio stuttered, repeating Eli's name between static. She frowned, twisting the knob, but the voice kept whispering. Ellie Turner. Eli Turner. She turned toward the window. The street outside was filled with people standing perfectly still, all facing the house. For the first time, Sarah felt the same chill her son carried. When she looked down, her reflection in the sink water smiled before she did. She stumbled back, dropping a cup. "Eli," she called, voice trembling. "Upstairs," her son's voice answered, but it came from two places at once. When Sarah rushed upstairs, she found Eli standing in the middle of the room, whispering to his reflection in the window. "I didn't mean it," he said. "Then why did you make it real?" the reflection answered. She froze in the doorway, watching her son's breath fog the glass. But the other version didn't breathe at all. "Eli," she whispered, but both heads turned toward her. One smiled. "Mom," said the reflection's voice, "don't ignore him." Sarah's knees weakened. She stepped back, knocking against the wall. "Eli," she whispered again, "what did you do?" The teacher came that evening, worried after Sarah's frantic phone call. Mr. Hayes stepped inside, his expression grim. The air in the Turner house felt heavy, like stepping underwater. "Eli," he said calmly, "sometimes when we wish too hard, we give things away in." Eli stood behind his mother, pale and shaking. "I just wanted people to see me," he whispered. Hayes crouched down, his eyes flicking toward the hallway mirror, where Eli's reflection stood smiling, separate from the boy. "They see you now," Mr. Hayes said softly. "Now you have to make them forget." That night, the whisper came again. But it wasn't just one voice anymore. It was hundreds repeating his name in perfect unison, filling the house until the walls shook. Eli covered his ears, screaming, "I take it back! I take it back!" His reflection only smiled, whispering, "Too late, Eli. You asked to never be ignored." The candlelight flared from nowhere, spreading like wildfire through the mirrors, across glass, across eyes. Sarah tried to reach him, but Every reflection in the house turned toward her too, mouths moving without sound. Eli fell to his knees as the light burned, realizing the truth. His wish had finally come true, and now nothing in the world could look away. The house was silent after the storm of whispers faded. Smoke clung to the air like breath that wouldn't leave. Sarah lay unconscious near the hallway, her arms stretched toward the shattered mirror. Eli crawled to her side, shaking her gently. "Mom, please wake up." No response. In the reflection of a broken shard beside her, his reflection blinked even though he hadn't. It smiled faintly. "You can end this," it whispered. "But lies don't die easy." Eli stood, trembling, surrounded by shards of glass that showed hundreds of versions of himself, each smiling differently. "What do you want from me?" he shouted. The reflections all answered at once, their voices merging into one chilling echo. "Attention." Eli stumbled to his room, clutching a piece of broken glass like a weapon. The reflection in his window was already waiting, sitting cross-legged, smiling calmly. "You lied because you wanted love," it said softly. "Now you have it. Everyone sees you." Eli shook his head. "This isn't love." The reflection tilted its head. "Then tell the truth." Eli hesitated. "I just wanted to matter." The reflection's smile faded for the first time. "Then show them who you are without me." Eli raised the shard, but before he could strike, the glass in the window rippled like water. His reflection reached out a hand. "Come in, Eli. Let's tell them together." The walls trembled as Eli stepped forward. The glass rippled again, pulling him halfway inside. He found himself in a mirror version of his room. Same furniture, same air, but colder, drained of color. His reflection stood beside him now, no longer smiling. "You lied because you wanted to be seen," it said. "But now the lie has taken root. You can't just stop believing it. You have to destroy it." Eli looked around, realizing the mirror world stretched endlessly with reflections of reflections. Each one whispered his name like a prayer. He raised the shard and whispered, "Then let's end it." He swung the shard down, shattering the reflection. A piercing scream filled the air, not from his mouth, but from everywhere at once. The mirror floor cracked, splitting the infinite reflections into chaos. Eli fell backward, tumbling through collapsing light, his reflection reaching after him, shouting words he couldn't hear. When he hit the floor, the real world rushed back, the house shaking, the mirrors exploding into dust. Sarah gasped, awake downstairs. Eli crawled toward the fallen candle, its flames still alive. He whispered, "No more lies," and blew it out. The light vanished, but for the first time, the silence felt real. When morning came, the Turner house stood quiet. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, warm and natural again. Sarah stirred from the couch, calling softly. "Eli?" He appeared at the doorway, pale but calm, holding the extinguished candle in both hands. "I told the truth," he said simply. She pulled him into her arms, crying. He smiled faintly, but his eyes drifted to the window. Outside, neighbors passed by, laughing, unaware of what had happened. For the first time, no one looked at him. Peace filled the air. Yet, as Eli turned away, the faintest reflection in the window smiled on its own, just for a second, and then vanished. Weeks passed before Eli dared to look into a mirror again. The school felt normal now. Laughter, footsteps, chatter. No whispers followed him, no eyes that wouldn't blink. Still, he avoided looking directly at his reflection. During art class, the teacher asked the students to draw what made them happy. Eli stared at the blank page, pencil trembling. What made him happy? He thought of truth. How fragile it was, how easily a lie could destroy it. Then he drew a candle, unlit, sitting in darkness. When Liam passed by his desk, he smiled kindly for once. "Nice drawing," he said. Eli forced a smile back, wondering quietly, had the lie truly gone? or had it simply learned to stay quiet? At home, Sarah scrubbed the last pieces of broken glass from the hallway. The house was peaceful again, filled with the hum of normal life, the smell of pancakes, the soft sound of television. But every now and then she caught herself glancing at the mirror above the mantel, half expecting it to blink. That night, when Eli went to bed, she lingered at his door, watching him sleep. For the first time in months, he looked peaceful. "You're safe now," she whispered, yet as she turned off the light, the faint glow of orange flickered once behind the cracked mirror frame, then vanished, like a heartbeat holding its breath. Autumn turned to winter, and snow began to fall. Eli walked home from school one evening, the street lamps glowing soft and golden in the fog. Everything looked calm, until he saw a flicker in a puddle near his feet. He glanced down and froze. His reflection looked back with a half-smile, eyes faintly glimmering with that old candlelight. He blinked, and it was gone, only ripples on the water remaining. "It's over," he whispered. But even he didn't believe it. Somewhere deep inside, he felt it watching, waiting for another wish, another careless lie to let it live again. That night, Eli dreamed he was back in the classroom, the candle burning brighter than ever. His classmates were there, faces soft and kind, but their mouths didn't move. The only sound was his own voice whispering from somewhere unseen. "You said you wanted to be seen." The flame flared higher, swallowing the room in golden light. He reached out to smother it, but when his hand touched the wax, he saw another hand reach from within the fire, identical to his own. He woke, gasping, the darkness of his room pressing in, his heart pounding with the realization that lies don't die. The next morning, sunlight flooded his room. Eli sat up, sweat-drenched, the echo of the dream still clinging to him. On his desk sat the old melted candle, the one his mother had found in the rubble weeks ago. It should have been gone, but here it was, whole again, new, wick, untouched. He stared at it for a long time, then opened the window and threw it into the snow below. The flame didn't appear, not even smoke, only silence. He exhaled deeply, whispering, "No more wishes." As he turned to leave, unseen by him, the candle in the snow flickered once, a tiny orange pulse, and then went still. Months later, the snow melted, leaving the streets wet and shining like mirrors. Eli walked home under a pale spring sky, a new calm in his steps. His mother smiled more now, the laughter returning to their house in small pieces. But sometimes when he passed the playground, he caught children staring at him a second too long. He told himself it was only habit, that the fear was gone. Yet one afternoon, he saw something buried where the old oak tree's roots cracked the dirt. The candle, still there. Perfect, untouched by time or weather. He crouched, staring at it, frozen between fear and curiosity. Then faintly he heard laughter. Not cruel, not mocking, just familiar. His own. That night, he dreamt of his birthday again. The classroom, the cupcake, the laughter. Everything was the same except one detail. This time, Liam was the one holding the cupcake. The candle burned bright as the class chanted, "Make a wish." Eli stood among them, silent, watching. Liam smiled nervously and said, "I wish I'd never be ignored again." Eli's heart stopped. The air stilled, the light dimmed, and in the flicker of the flame, Eli saw himself. The boy who'd started it all, standing behind Liam's shoulder, smiling. The whisper returned, soft and patient. "Lies don't die, Eli. They only move on. Dat not frisen just. They senior kusiurdi. Eli woke, gasping, his hands gripping the bedsheets. He ran to his window and saw the schoolyard in the early dawn, mist curling over the swings. Children weren't there yet, but the faint sound of laughter carried on the wind, the same laughter from his dream. He stared at his reflection in the window, but this time it didn't move. It just stared back, calm, almost sad. "It's not your lie anymore," it whispered. "Be careful who you listen to next." Eli turned away, trembling, the world outside slowly brightening. But the warmth of morning could not chase the chill from his chest. Later that week, Liam and a few kids gathered after school, laughing, daring each other to make wishes into the air. Eli watched from afar, frozen. "I wish," Liam said proudly, "that people will never forget me." The others clapped, joking. But Eli saw it, the candlelight flicker in Liam's eyes. A spark, tiny but alive. He wanted to shout, to warn him, to end it before it began again. But his voice caught. The air was too still, too familiar. Somewhere in the distance, a whisper rose like a sigh through the leaves. Eli closed his eyes, tears slipping down. "Please," he whispered, "don't start again." But lies love to be remembered. That night, as the moon rose over the quiet town, a faint orange light flickered in a bedroom window. Not Eli's, but Liam's. Inside, the candle stood tall on a desk, flame burning steady and proud. A shadow moved beside it, smiling faintly. Far away, Eli sat awake, staring at the darkness outside his own window, sensing what he already knew. Some lies don't vanish. They wait. They listen. They find new voices. The flame of deceit burns brightest in those who think they can control it. And in that lonely quiet, the story began again, with a wish whispered to the dark. "I just want to be seen."